Thank you, guys. Well, it's amazing to see that in the past few years, Cyberweek has grown to be one of the top and leading events in cybersecurity worldwide. And wherever I go, each country, I meet people that say, you know what, we're coming to Israel to participate in the Cyberweek. Now, I think to some extent, it is even more amazing that it is free to come here. The university sells no tickets, and everybody could just register. And I want to say that none of this could have happened without our sponsors. We work with our sponsors to make this possible. So at this point, I want to say thank you to all of our sponsors who appear here on the screen. So big round of applause for everyone who make this happen. The next session, I'm very excited to invite the next person to the stage. He is the CEO of McAfee, Chris Young. Chris, the stage is yours.
Thanks very much. Well, good morning, everyone. Great inspiring message this morning. It's great to be here at Cyberweek. It's my first time. And it's also nice to be here on the 70th anniversary of Israeli statehood. It's an honor to join with you in your year of celebration. And I'm reminded in this 70th year of Israeli statehood how much this country promotes innovation. You've seen it all week long, and you will continue to see the innovation here in Israel. Just in the last year alone, over 60 cybersecurity companies launched here in the country of Israel. Many of them founded by women at a time when in our industry we need more diversity. But I do want to take a moment to highlight another area of Israeli innovation, which I think holds some lessons for all of us. The Prime Minister mentioned this a little bit earlier, but this practice is as old as the nation itself. It harnesses adversity. It takes adversity to its advantage and drives surprising outcomes, creating diversity in the economy, long-term growth, and improving the overall food supply for the nation and the world. The practice I'm talking about is aquaculture, Israel's blue economy. And at a glance, and as someone from abroad like myself, the interior of the country of Israel would seem like a bit of an unlikely place for land-based fish farms. But the results in the arid Negev speak for themselves. Engineers take adverse conditions and turn them into positives every day. They tap into underground water resources and use that water, which is unsuitable for raising crops, but use it to raise seafood instead, creating economic value where prior there was none. And that practice extends even further to the Arava, where geothermal water is used not only to raise seafood, but crops as well through hydroponics. In that case, aquaculture and agriculture merge to create surprising and quite impressive results, as we saw a bit earlier. And just like in cybersecurity, just like in our industry, there are many, many different challenges to overcome in this practice. Some species of fish don't respond well to being farmed in the desert. Viruses can take hold and overwhelm some of the stock. We see small operations that can struggle to scale, new technology that has to be redesigned, and climate variables changing very frequently, forcing us to change the methodology. But every learning, every course correction leads to a new approach, but also new positive results for aquaculture. Because one of the only things that matters when it comes to farming is the outcome. Feeding people, improving the economy, healthy fish for the table, red strawberries for our children at breakfast. This vibrant ecosystem of integrated technologies allows engineers to tackle adversity on a daily basis and solve multiple problems at the same time. They leverage unusable water at a time when water is scarce on a global level. They feed the nation and the world's economy as well. There's lessons for all of us here at Cyberweek in what we see in Israeli aquaculture. As in the Negev and in the Arava, adversity in an ecosystem can be harnessed as a good thing. In our own industry, there are literally thousands of us, private companies as well as public sector organizations, tackling the cybersecurity challenge and our adversity every day. Many of us out there competing on a daily basis. But some of the lessons that we can learn from Israeli aquaculture may not be as readily apparent as others. In fact, when you think about one of the most important things we can do, it's to be focused on the outcomes that we're trying to drive in cybersecurity. And oftentimes, however, we get a bit too focused on the competition itself, competing product by product. You heard Nadav up here a moment ago talk a little bit about that and what it can lead to in our industry. There are times when we lose sight of the outcome and we lose the ability to add value in our industry. Competition doesn't always solve the problem. In fact, it can lead to innovation overload. Adversity, in this case, become a force to divide us rather than unite us. It would be akin to an aquaculture of simply trying to raise more fish without focusing on the ultimate goal, which is to feed more people and produce better results in our economy. I would argue that if we look at adversity in the right way, we can harness its power to compel us all to do more in our industry, to fight a common adversary together. Adversity, leveraged in the right way, can only make us stronger as an industry, forcing us to focus on the outcomes that our cyber defenders need the most. By designing resilience into the environments that we're designing to protect, improving our overall cybersecurity posture. In this scenario, abundance of choice, diversity of technologies and innovations can become a strength and provide real protection for all the cyber defenders that use those technologies. Because in cybersecurity, similar to in farming, it's all about the outcomes. That's what matters the most. In our industry, the protected identity, the resilient infrastructure that allows us to recover from an attack, the secure data that allows our systems to continue to operate. Those are the outcomes that matter for all of us as we seek to build tools and we bring technologies to bear, build process and defenses around our technology ecosystems. Many of us enlisted in this industry, I'm often reminded, because we believe in the mission. We believe in what we're doing as part of the cybersecurity ecosystem. That's why we're all here this week at this conference. Many of us join the industry to protect our people, our governments, our businesses, our universities, hospitals, and many, many other parts of the broader technology ecosystem. And that's why here at Cyberweek, the conversation itself, begin with the end in mind, is really powerful. That end being something along the lines of securing the digital experience for every legitimate member of our cybersphere. At McAfee, we come to this discussion with a unique perspective and a little bit of a different approach. A long track record in some regards of really trying to drive an open architecture that allows for innovation while trying to drive simplicity for the user. Our objective in this case is to facilitate a healthy yet integrated ecosystem of cyber technologies. And I often have questions myself around how far do you go with open? How well can you drive an open ecosystem without overcrowding the population, so to speak? And our data often shows this. And when we talk to customers and cyber defenders around the world, one of the big pieces of feedback that we often get is that they're drowning in technology. In fact, just yesterday, I'm in a conversation with a CISO of a quite large organization here in Israel, a global organization. And he showed me a slide of all the different tools and technologies that he's got in his environment. And he said, look, I'm overwhelmed by it. And I'm not sure that I'm getting all the value that I need. And we know that in many cases, the proliferation of technologies has been brought on by a good strategy. That strategy being defense in depth. It's a strategy that's as old as the cybersecurity industry itself. And it's served us well in many regards. But taken multiple steps too far, that defense in-depth strategy turns into an overwhelming sea of options for our users. It's equivalent in aquaculture of, again, trying to raise more fish at any cost. What we also see, another lesson for us in all of this, is the difference between closed and open ecosystems. In closed systems in fish farming, sometimes you lead to overcrowding, overpopulation, sickness, and ultimately failing on the goal to build larger, healthier populations. In contrast, open ecosystems lead to innovation, healthy fish, larger outputs in production. And there are lessons in there for us in technology and in the cybersecurity landscape itself. When we create the opportunity and facilitate opportunities for innovation, we can grow, we can thrive, and we can create the diverse defenses that we need to tackle our adversaries. As we saw earlier, to put it in Game of Thrones terms, we know winter is coming. We just need to be prepared to meet it when it arrives. So nearly 10 years ago, one step we decided to take was to open up McAfee's platforms to third parties, to allow other technology providers to integrate with us as we show up to provide our cyber defenders with the tools they need to be successful. We created a partner program called the Security Innovation Alliance, recruiting partners to join with us to help us integrate together across our platforms, but also drive unique technologies that our customers could rely on. This integration and innovation would allow us to drive joint value for cyber defenders. It would create a simplified experience through tools like common management, but create a better and stronger overall cyber posture for the user. And we felt like this is a good start. We've created this partner program, we've helped with diversity, we've helped promote innovation, but we quickly realized that even that wasn't enough. It was just one step in many. Creating common policy management was only a part of the equation. One other area where we saw real opportunity was the area for real-time shared threat intelligence, because that's one of the biggest struggles that we have in our industry. If we could crowdsource in real time all the threat intelligence that each one of us around the world houses, we would be far better at tackling and responding to any threat that's out there. So how do we do this? We decided to create an architecture called the data exchange layer, which would facilitate the real-time communications of indicators of compromise and other threat signatures that would allow us to respond in near real time to attacks between and among different products, different tools, different processes that we're using in our infrastructures. We brought the data exchange layer to life through our Security Innovation Alliance program, recruited partners, large partners like Cisco and Checkpoint, a number of others across the industry. Mike DeCesar's team from Forescout is one of the early partners that worked with us on the data exchange layer. But we realized a little while in that even that wasn't enough, that we had to do more. We had to push the boundaries even harder, because our vision was that anyone, anywhere should be able to access the threat intelligence that they need to be successful at thwarting an attack. So we decided to go a step further and actually open up the technology and create an open source community around the OpenDXL capability. That then allowed us to make DXL available to any developer in any company around the world. And the results are building every day as we speak. We're seeing new product integrations happen every day, and our customers are building integrations that allow them to share and signal upstream and downstream from endpoints to the edge of their networks with real-time threat intelligence in ways that help them drive, ultimately, better outcomes for their cybersecurity posture. And as in aquaculture, which shows us that no ecosystem itself can be left to chance, we're certainly well aware that any diverse ecosystem has to be actively managed and participated in order for it to be successful. If we are to prevail against our cyber adversaries, we have to give our defenders choice, but we have to do so without forcing them to give up the simplicity and the operational motions that they need to be successful. And that's another reason why, as we've moved to the cloud, open APIs become more important in our architecture. But we can't just stop there at technology. As you heard earlier, so much of this is about people. And it's a reason why we decided that we had to commit to more. Go beyond the tools and the technology, join forces with other companies in the ecosystem, and find ways to drive additional value. It's one of the reasons why just a few years ago, McAfee and a number of other companies, Checkpoint, Cisco, Palo Alto Networks, Symantec, Fortinet, all joined together to create something called the Cyber Threat Alliance. That group of cybersecurity companies, many times competitors, but in this case, cooperating together to raise the bar in cybersecurity by sharing threat intelligence that we have with each other so we can improve the overall cybersecurity posture of our respective customers and partners. And we've been growing that base in the CTA, bringing other companies into the mix, because we believe that only through collaboration around capabilities like shared threat intelligence will we be able to effectively meet that adversary as winter is coming. We go further than that even, partnering with law enforcement in many cases to help bring down cybercrime, partnering with standards bodies and organizations around the world to drive better interoperability between and among not only cybersecurity tools, but broader sets of the technical ecosystem as well. We'll never be finished in this mission, but we do this for the benefit of our users, our cyber defenders, who, with the rich diversity of the broader technology ecosystem, will become stronger. And at McAfee, we'll continue to push that frontier of what it means to truly be open so that we can deliver outcomes to the industry without limits on our ability to be successful. Whether those outcomes are facilitated by shared intelligence, unified workflow capabilities, interoperability between different products, when we unlock these forces, we know that we can redirect our competitive adversity into a rich ecosystem that delivers the defensive diversity that will ultimately help us thrive. Thrive like we see in Israeli aquaculture. So my call to action for all of us in our industry, any participant in the cybersecurity ecosystem, is that you have to demand that we're open. You have to participate actively in the ecosystem itself. Let's no longer force our users into closed proprietary systems. Our adversaries aren't constrained by many boundaries, so why should we create constraints for ourselves? Each of us, whether you're a technology provider, whether you're a user, a defender, or any participant in the cybersecurity landscape, you have a role to demand open. Insist upon it as a design principle, whether you're building, assessing, or implementing technology or any cybersecurity process for defensive purposes. And I'm not asking for us to stop competing, because only when we compete can we reach the top of our game. That's important, just like in the World Cup. But we mustn't focus on simply producing more fish. To use my aquaculture analogy, we have to make sure we keep sight of the broader goal, which is that we're ultimately here to feed more people. So if you allow me for a moment to finish with an example of the kind of results that you can drive with aquaculture, I'd like to point to an example in Kenya. It's a powerful story. Lake Victoria in Kenya was once home to one of the largest, most diverse populations of fish in the world. But in our lifetime, nearly 40% of the species of fish in the lake went extinct due to overpollution and crowding. It's called one of the most dramatic examples of human extinction caused in an ecosystem. Malnutrition was one of the main results. But in 2014, Israel and Germany partnered together and launched aquaculture businesses around 10 counties in the Lake Victoria region. Those aquaculture farms now employ nearly 500,000 people directly and nearly 2 million people indirectly. In less than 5 years, Kenya will become an exporter of fish with a diversified economy, reduction in poverty, and overall food security improved for millions of people in the country. And if there is a cause in our world that's greater than ours in cybersecurity, you could argue it would be about feeding our people around the world. So thank you, Israel, for that innovation. But also thank you for the reminder to all of us in our industry to reach higher in everything that we do, to begin with the end in mind, whether it's about feeding a child or protecting them in their digital life. Thank you all very much for the time this morning, and enjoy the rest of Cyberweek.
Thank you so much.